Welcome, everybody, to the first full video podcast, Course of Action podcast. I'm glad you're here with me today. This is a look at kind of the new setup, what I'm trying to go for. So, podcast episodes will be like this from now on because what I really want to do is bring those guests to you in a more intimate format where you can see their faces. So, if the guests allow it, and they want to do video and they're comfortable with doing video, this will be the setup that it looks like. Otherwise, you can catch the audio episodes on Spotify, Apple, Pandora, Amazon Music, all the other podcast, platforms. You can check them out there. I kicked around the idea of like what I wanted to really do in the first video podcast. I thought about having some special guests on. I thought about doing a Q&A. Thought about a lot of different things. And then I kind of settled down and I just wanted to say thank you. Just a big thank you episode for everybody who's been on the podcast, everybody who's listened to the podcast, everybody who shared it or told somebody about it, anybody who has supported this. I just want to say thank you. So what I also want to do is highlight some of the books that I've gotten from people who have came on the podcast. And I want to tell them how much I really appreciate that and how much they were awesome guests. And it really, really changed the dynamic. And I don't think I'd have nearly as many listeners as I do if it wasn't for them. So first up, The Talent War by Mike Sarraille and George Randle. George Randle was a guest on the podcast a while back. They are managing partners of the Talent War Group, and they wrote this book, and they do a lot of business and HR consulting because there's a talent war going on. And they really go over a very unique former military, former special ops perspective on how we're losing the talent war and how retaining talent and growing talent and even recruiting talent has become a lot more difficult. And here it is right there, The Talent War. It's a very unique book. It's a very cool perspective on how we're looking at human resources and leading people, and no two better guys to do it than them. And I have to say, it was a fantastic book, and it's got a great cover on it too. So go check it out, The Talent War, Mike Sarraille, George Randle, and go check out the episode with George Randle. Next, Scott Deluzio. I haven't had Scott on yet, but he will be in a future episode of the podcast. But I wanted to give him a shout out because he had me on his podcast, which is called the Drive On Podcast. And it's an excellent podcast. He has tons of excellent guests on there. I was very honored and humbled that he had me on, and we talked about a lot of different things. But it was an awesome podcast. I really enjoy it. And he's got an awesome book, Surviving Son. An Afghanistan war veteran reveals his nightmare for becoming a Gold Star brother. Very interesting. It's an excellent read. Scott's an excellent guy. He has a fantastic podcast, as I said. You really got to go check it out. And, of course, I love this cover too. So, Scott Deluzio. Scott, I hope I said that correctly. Go check out his Drive On podcast. Pick up his book. Next, we have a thriller author, David Darling. Author of many thrillers, including The Tipping Point, Grave Choices, which is his second one. He has Grim Measures, which is his ebook novella that you can pick up as well. And he has a future book coming out, his third book in the Noah Hunta series, Course of Action. Awesome name. David was on one of the very first episodes of my podcast, and he was really, really patient with me as I was working through some technical difficulties. And I got to say, David, man, I'm really impressed with you. David has been self-publishing. He finally just said, you know what? I have awesome books and I have an awesome story to tell, and I really want to tell it. So he just decided to self-publish, and he's crushing it, absolutely crushing it. So you got to go check out his books. Like I said, the first one is The Tipping Point. Then you got Grave Choices, the novella, Grim Measures, and of course his brand new one that's coming out in May of 2022, Course of Action. So David, thanks, brother. I appreciate all your support, and I'm honored to be able to support you. Next, we have another guest on the podcast, Terence Lee. Terence Lee is the introvert leader on Instagram. You can go check him out. But his book, Quiet Voice, Fearless Leader, is an introvert's perspective to leadership and how it works. And we don't realize how much introverts and experts actually alike. I didn't realize how much of an introvert I was until I talked to Terrance. And I really, really got a good perspective of what he was thinking. This is an awesome book. It's got one of my favorite covers of all time because it's a very, very powerful cover, but at the same time, it's also very calming and kind of quiet. It's really cool. I have to say, this was a really cool book. It really made me jealous because I wish that, I would have thought of this, but, Terrence nails it. And you can follow him on Instagram. I think he has his Made Leaders Monday where he does a live every Monday night. You can check out different topics and different guests. Like I said, he was also a guest on the podcast. So definitely go check that out and pick up his book. Your Leadership Legacy by Lieutenant Colonel Retired Oak McCulloch. Hope I said that right, sir. Awesome book. He's a award-winning recruiter in the Army and in the civilian world. He works for a big college down in Florida where he's a recruiter down there. They have one of the top programs in the country, and he's really, really crushing it. And I was really flattered when he hit me up and said, "Hey, Jeff, I'd like to sit down and talk, and if you're looking for guests, let me know." And I said, "Sure, absolutely. Let's do it." So he's got an awesome book. Back says, "Today's leaders have a responsibility to inspire the leaders of tomorrow." That's pretty huge. It's a big deal. And we had a lot in common when it came to talking about leadership. We had a really great discussion. So you got to go check out that episode of the podcast as well, where Oak McCulloch comes on here and we talk leadership. So thanks, sir. Appreciate you. Go check out his book as well. Chris Strom, former NYPD intelligence cop, Brooklyn to Baghdad. This is a very interesting and unique perspective on fighting the war on terror. Chris was a former Marine. He got out after just a couple of years, and then he went and joined the New York Police Department. Eventually rose through the ranks to be an intelligence cop, fought a lot of crime, anti-terrorism type of stuff in the New York Police Department. Then when he retired, he moved down to the East Coast, was trying to enjoy it, and he gets hit up about a special mission with a special group of individuals who are all retired or former, intelligence folks and had a very unique skill set. He went to Iraq and he fought alongside some very awesome individuals and tried to interrogate and really learn the methods and ideals behind all these vehicle-borne IEDs and all these other kinds of IEDs and saved a ton of lives. This is a story that you're not going to hear in the mainstream media. This is a story that nobody's going to tell you, and it's very, very awesome. Chris is an awesome guy. He sent this book to me. Oh, man, he's been so supportive of me as well. He was on an earlier episode of the podcast, so you got to check that out and pick up Brooklyn to Baghdad. Wow, what an incredible book. Thanks again, Chris. Sacrifice. A Gold Star Widow's Fight for the Truth by Michelle Black. Michelle lost her husband over in Niger with ODA 3212, and I have to say, it's a very powerful story. What really got me was the way our Pentagon and our political leaders handled the situation. In one word, it was poor. And that's probably saying it nicely. Michelle took out on a journey to write this book, but not write it how you would think it would be. You think it would be a Gold Star widow's struggle to really understand what happened and to grieve, and you'd have that story of grieving and dealing with family and all that. That's not this. This book is part of that, but this book is mainly about the story behind ODA 3212 and the guys that didn't lose their lives in that fight, in that big ambush, and how they had to deal with things. Those guys were under gag orders. The Pentagon wouldn't let them talk. Their only outlet was to sit down with Michelle and really talk with her about it, talk to her about her husband, but the other teammates they lost on the mission. She was their outlet. And she wrote an awesome book, I have to say. This is a very cool story because it's not just her story about her and her family. It's about the extended family of the operators that were on ODA 3212. It's a very, very cool and unique book. There's also a Netflix, I believe it was a Netflix special about ODA 3212, kind of pulling back behind the scenes that you can also see some of the other family members of the members that passed away. But Michelle's book really tells the whole truth and kind of pulls back that curtain on the guys that were in the ambush and what they really had to deal with and come home to. So awesome book. Thank you, Michelle, for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure. The book is great. You have to go pick it up and check out her website because she's got all kinds of other appearances she's done, and she's a really fantastic and very, very motivating individual. So thanks again, Michelle. And last, certainly not least, my brother, Eric Bishop. Eric, man, if you're listening, I don't have a copy of your book right now because they're packaged up in a box and they're on their way to you for autographs. But I want to give a shout out on here because Eric has been incredibly supportive of everything that I've done. Even though we're in kind of different genres, he's in fiction, I'm in nonfiction. He knows that I'm going to write some fiction here shortly, and he's been really supportive of what I've been trying to do on my side and building my audience. And we're just trying to really work together to build each other's writing careers. And I couldn't thank him more. I'm sorry I don't have a copy of the book to put out, but I do have this. I have your coin. Here it is. Boom. The Body Man. That's Eric's debut novel, The Body Man. And this is his coin that I don't think he's handing out too many of, so it's kind of hard to get. But if you hit Eric up on social media and you show him a copy of your book that you bought of The Body Man, he might just send you one of these. You never know. But I tell you what, awesome debut thriller. One of the probably best debut thrillers that I've ever read. And it's an awesome concept. Eric really did a grassroots campaign to make his book successful. He even sold some books overseas. So he went international with his sales. Eric's an awesome individual. I can't thank him enough. Again, sorry, I don't have a copy of the book, but I do have the coin that you can check out. And if you want to get one of these coins, like I said, go get a copy of The Body Man. It's available on Amazon. Show it to Eric, hit him up on social media, and stay tuned to his social media pages because his second book, Breach of Trust, is going to be coming out soon. And that's a big deal because it's a follow-up to The Body Man. So you still have time. You still have time to read that story and find out about Eric Bishop and go hit him up on his website. So, Eric, thanks again, brother. I appreciate you. Now to everybody else. I've had a lot of other guests on here, and I don't have something that I can put in front of you to show their product, but I can tell you that I appreciate them dearly. You should absolutely go check out their episodes and check out what they're doing and follow behind them because we got some people that are in military transition. We got people who are writing debut novels like Jack Stewart, people who are crushing away at novels like David Darling, and a bunch of other people. A lot of veterans because I'm a veteran myself, but I have to say I'm really grateful for all the guests that I've had on so far. And I can't thank them enough for their support. And I really hope that you go check out some of these episodes. And stay tuned because we're going to be doing a lot more of this video stuff. And the next guests are going to be hopefully right here on the video platform. So thank you again. Appreciate it.